Yo, what is going on, guys? Today I'm going to be doing my NFL recap, my lineup review for the Week 15 slate on DraftKings, reviewing my cash game lineup for Week 15. It wasn't the best week overall. I put up 141.98 in cash games. This did cash in some double ups, 50-50s, depending on what contest you entered. I know in this listener league that I played in for the DFS Edge podcast, I just fell short of min cashing. 870 people got paid in this one. And I finished 874th, so just barely fell out of the cashing in this listener league that I played my lineup in. But if you just look at my lineup, you can see the kind of week it was. I hit on a lot of good plays. I had 4 players put up over 23 DraftKings points, but I also hit a ton of landmines. Had 4 players put up less than 5 DraftKings points. So it was just one of those weeks where you hit on a lot of guys, but you also miss on a lot of guys. Cam Newton crushed with 31 DraftKings points. We'll start off there at quarterback. Wound up going to Cam and cash. Originally was on Blake Bortles coming into the day, or coming in Sunday morning. But I found the salary since I got on Chris Ivory. I went off of Alex Collins. I originally had him as my RB2. Got off of him, went down to Ivory, upgraded to Cam Newton, and that ultimately wound up getting me on Devin Funchess, which obviously did not work out. But Cam crushed for 4 touchdowns, 242 yards, and 58 rushing yards, 31 DraftKings points. You would have told me Cam was throwing 4 TDs. I would have been so psyched since I stacked him with Funchess. Obviously, that didn't work out. Funchess somehow only put up 2.9 DraftKings points when Cam threw for 242 yards and 4 touchdowns. Pretty annoying when your number one wideout doesn't do anything when you have a really good day, but I just guess that's just how it is. But looking on to my next play, Kenyon Drake, pretty chalky play. This one was a pretty obvious play. The guy's been playing so well with Damian Williams out. He's been getting a ton of work. Finished the day with 23 DraftKings points. Had a rushing touchdown, 78 rushing yards. Also got 6 catches for 35 yards. He's just involved in the passing game. He gets the workload. I believe he finished with 22 touches, 16 carries, and 6 catches as well. So 22 touches on the day. The dude's just getting so much work. He's involved in the passing game. He was too cheap in my opinion. The matchup was great against Buffalo. Kenyon Drake, one of the more obvious plays on the slate if you're playing cash games. He wound up being 54% in the listener league, so he was pretty chalky, but ultimately wound up working out. My next running back was Chris Ivory. Obviously, this was a play that did not work out. Only had 42 rushing yards, not a single catch, or I don't even think he got a single target either. So only 4.2 DraftKings points from Ivory. I know he had so many opportunities to score a touchdown, though. I know he got stuffed at the goal line like twice, and then they brought in the fullback, and the fullback wound up scoring. And I believe the Jaguars got down to the goal line again later on in the game. Ivory got stuffed again, and then they brought in the fullback, and the fullback scored. So really, Ivory had 2 opportunities, 2 easy opportunities, 2 touchdowns. Only put up 42 rushing yards, wasn't able to score at all. Obviously, we can look back and say that Ivory was a bad play when he has a bad game, but I didn't think he was going to be that bad of a play. I figured that he would at least get like 50 yards and a touchdown. Ultimately, he should have done that because he should have found the end zone, but he got stuffed like 3 or 4 times, and the fullback wound up getting the 2 touchdowns at the goal line. If Ivory gets those 2 touchdowns, he crushes and puts up like 16, 17 DraftKings points. But it didn't happen, only 4.2 DK points. Ivory definitely a play that did not work out. But looking on to my next play, wide receiver, like I said, Devin Funchess, just a play that really killed me. Stacked him with Cam. I thought that was going to be a great upside stack. Even in cash games, I like stacking quarterbacks with receivers sometimes. And I thought this was a play that was really going to work out. Obviously, Cam had a good day. Devin Funchess did not. Got 4 targets, only 1 catch for 19 yards. I know he dropped a pass that he caught in the end zone. He should have had a touchdown, but he got hit, dropped the ball. So that killed me. And he just wasn't really targeted throughout the game. Cam was throwing a lot to Greg Olsen. Christian McCaffrey had a really nice game. Devin Funchess just didn't do much. He was 27% owned, so he's pretty chalky. I stacked him with Cam. Obviously, Cam had a good day, but Funchess did not, so that was pretty disappointing. But moving to my next receiver, Marquise Goodwin. This is a play that really worked out. Marquise Goodwin just been playing so well with Jimmy Garoppolo at quarterback. Garoppolo has been getting him a ton of looks. I know Garoppolo started the last 3 games. Goodwin's got 8, 12, and 13 targets with Garoppolo at quarterback. 17, 19, and 25 DraftKings points. It was a great matchup against the Titans. They don't have a good secondary at all. So this play really worked out. Goodwin had 10 catches for 114 yards. So he got the 100-yard bonus, also got 10 rushing yards as well, 25.4 DraftKings points from Marquise Goodwin. So he's a play that worked out. I thought he's a pretty clear play. Didn't really like the price tag at 6K, but I like the potential for upside here. I was thinking about stacking him with Garoppolo just as the day went on. But Garoppolo was pretty expensive. I believe he was like 6,200, I think. And I feel like Cam had a little bit more upside in that price range, so I just went with Cam at quarterback. But definitely was considering going Garoppolo to Goodwin. But I still wanted Goodwin. I still thought San Francisco was going to be able to put up points on Tennessee. I thought Goodwin was going to have a good game, and ultimately he did for 25 DraftKings points. But moving on to my next receiver, D.D. Westbrook, another play that just really disappointed. Just a really disappointing game from some of the Jacksonville guys. Jacksonville, the Jaguars, they managed to put up 45 points. And D.D. Westbrook, Chris Ivory, like all the good plays, Marquise Lee, those guys did absolutely nothing. And the guys like Keelan Cole, I know Bohannon was the fullback. He scored twice. Keelan Cole had a monster game. I can't remember who the other guy was, but a lot of the guys from Jacksonville that nobody played were the guys that went off and crushed. So pretty disappointing that Jacksonville puts up 45 points, and guys like D.D. Westbrook, Chris Ivory, your number one back, your number one receiver, wound up with 8 DraftKings points combined. Pretty disappointing. Westbrook only got 2 catches for 21 yards, just did not have a good game. Bortles went off for like 300 yards and 3 touchdowns, I think, and D.D. Westbrook only wound up with 4 DraftKings points. So that was another play that was just really disappointing. I really like D.D. Westbrook this week. I thought he was a little bit too cheap. He's been seeing the targets just all year. Did not see the targets this week, though. Only got 2 targets, but he did catch both of his targets for 21 yards. But you just look before yesterday's game against Houston. 8 targets against Seattle, 9 against the Colts, 10 against the Cardinals, 6 against Cleveland. So I figured the targets would be there. I know Marquise Lee got hurt in this game, so I figured that would have opened up even more targets for Westbrook. Did not happen, obviously. Definitely a play that really cost me. D.D. Westbrook only putting up 4 DraftKings points. But moving on to the next play, Ricky Seals-Jones. This was a play that I got on Sunday morning. I talked about this in Thursday's video, but I thought tight end was a really gross position this week. I didn't like a lot of the options. So when we got news Sunday morning that Jermaine Gresham was going to be out, I thought Ricky Seals-Jones would be the number 1 tight end. I thought he was going to play a lot more snaps. And we've seen Ricky Seals-Jones, when he's on the field, he's been able to produce this year with Gabbert at quarterback. Has 2 games this year, 17 DraftKings points and 20 DraftKings points. He has shown upside. He has been targeted in the red zone a lot this year when he's been on the field. So I figured with Gresham out, he'd be on the field a lot more. Did not happen. I believe he only ran a route on like 12 dropbacks, or 12 of Blaine Gabbert's dropbacks. But really, any time that Ricky Seals-Jones is on the field, he's going to be out there to run routes. He's not out there to block. So anytime he was on the field, Gabbert was going to be looking to him to throw the ball. He got 6 targets. Like I said, he only ran 12 routes, but of his 12 routes that he ran, 6 of the routes he was targeted on. So this was a play that I didn't really feel bad about. I hated tight end. Being able to go to Ricky Seals-Jones opened up a lot. He was only 3K. Obviously, I thought he would had a much better game than just 3 DraftKings points. But I just hated tight end overall at this position. When we got news that Gresham was out, I figured Seals-Jones would just be an easy play at 3K. He just allowed me to do a lot at other positions. Obviously, the play did not work out. Only 3 DraftKings points. But Ricky Seals-Jones, not a play I really feel bad about going to. We can obviously look back and say there were better plays in that range, like Ben Watson, Greg Olsen. Obviously, those were guys I should have went to, but I felt good about Seals-Jones, and I thought he would at least been able to hit value on this price tag. But looking at my final 2 plays, my flex and my defense, my flex, pretty clear play here, Le'Veon Bell. I just talked about Bell in Thursday's video and Monday's video. Anytime we get this guy, anytime he's on a slate, we have to consider him, especially in a game like yesterday's where we figured it was going to be high scoring and Le'Veon Bell was going to be really involved. Obviously, that was the case. 24 carries, 117 rushing yards. Also got 5 catches for 48 yards. And he had a rushing touchdown as well. 30 DraftKings points, just your typical Le'Veon Bell game. The guy just does so much. You always want to consider him. He was 41% owned, so he's pretty chalky. But the upside that Le'Veon Bell has, easy play in my opinion. And ultimately wound up hitting value with 30 DraftKings points. Really nice game from Le'Veon Bell. And then looking at my final play, my defense. I wound up on the Vikings defense. I talked about them in Thursday's video. I just really like the spot for them playing at home against the Bengals. The Bengals have pretty much given up on the year. I know their head coach is planning to leave. They don't really care anymore. They're out of the playoff run. So this was a great spot for the Vikings to just totally crush, and they ultimately wound up crushing should have had a shutout because the Bengals wound up scoring with like 5 minutes left in the game. But the Vikings were up 34-0. Should have had the shutout. Should have finished with 24 DK points. But the Bengals were able to get 7 points with a couple minutes left in the game. But the Vikings were still able to get plenty of turnovers. Got 2 interceptions and 3 sacks. Also got a pick six. One of those interceptions was a pick six. Finished with 17 DraftKings points. I thought the Vikings were a pretty clear play in that mid-tier. If you weren't going to pay up for like Jacksonville or for the Ravens, then I was definitely going to the Vikings in that mid-tier. They worked out. 17 DraftKings points from your defense. Definitely will take that. But yeah, guys, this was my cash game lineup for Week 15. Cam Newton, Kenyon Drake, Chris Ivory, Devin Funchess, Marquise Goodwin, Dede Westbrook, Ricky Seals-Jones, Le'Veon Bell, and the Vikings defense finished with 141.98 points. And then looking at the Millionaire Maker, looking at the guy with the highest scoring lineup on the slate, Jay West 64 put up 243.98 DK points. We did have some similar plays here. He had Cam Newton, he had the Vikings defense, he had Marquise Goodwin. I played all three of those guys in my cash game lineup. Obviously, he had some really nice plays to hit. Todd Gurley, only 8% owned in the Millionaire Maker. That was a great play by Jay West 64. Anytime you get a stud running back who's going to be low owned, always want to consider them in tournaments. It was pretty hard for anybody to win a tournament if you didn't have Todd Gurley. He went off for 48 DraftKings points, had 3 rushing touchdowns, 152 yards. Also got 3 catches for 28 yards and a receiving touchdown. So if you didn't have Todd Gurley in GPPs, you probably could have min cashed at least, but it was definitely hard to take down a GPP this week without Todd Gurley. He just had such a good game. He also hit on another good stud running back that was low owned. LaShawn McCoy, only 7.8% owned. Like I said, anytime you get these stud running backs with low ownership, definitely guys you want to consider. And Shady McCoy had a solid game, 25.6 DraftKings points. Good play by Jay West 64. Keelan Cole was his next play. Obviously, this was a play that crushed. 34.6 DraftKings points. I know Keelan Cole hasn't been targeted a ton this year, but he was the guy that Bortles was definitely looking to in yesterday's game. Had 9 targets, 7 catches for 186 yards and a touchdown. Just totally crushed. Before that game, obviously the targets were never there for Keelan Cole. He's had some games this year where he's seen nice targets, like 6 against the Jets, got 8 against the Chargers. But you just look before those games, usually Keelan Cole's only getting like 3 targets a game. So definitely a guy I wasn't going to consider. I felt like Dede Westbrook, Marquise Lee were much better plays. But we knew Jacksonville was going to be able to put up points on Houston. So going to Keelan Cole at just 3,700, I guess that was a pretty sharp play. He was only 4% owned, so not a lot of people were on him. And obviously that was a play that wound up working out with 34 DraftKings points. But moving on to his next play, Marquise Goodwin, already talked about him. Good play in my opinion this week, 16% owned in the Millionaire Maker. So some people were on him, but definitely not as high owned as I thought he would be. The next play, Alshon Jeffrey, only 5% owned. Didn't have that great of a game, just 1 touchdown, 4 catches, 49 yards, 14.9 DraftKings points. Obviously, that wasn't a play that really helped Jay West win the Millionaire Maker, but Jeffrey still had a solid game, only 5% owned. I know he's pretty cheap. I think he's like sub 6K, so he was cheap for his talent level, at least for this week. Yeah, he was 5,900 yesterday, and even with Foles at quarterback, Jeffrey was still able to produce, so I guess that was sort of a good filler by Jay West 64. His tight end was Ben Watson. This was a play that I wasn't on. I just didn't feel very confident in Ben Watson. He hasn't been able to produce like all year. The targets have never really been there for him. He's only had like 1 or 2 games this year where really nice targets. And just especially as of late, the production's been so up and down. Obviously, the matchup was great for Ben Watson. The Browns, they suck against tight ends. And Watson was able to find the end zone, 4 catches, 74 yards, and a touchdown. He was probably the tight end I should have went to instead of Ricky Seals-Jones. I know they were somewhat priced in that same range. Or even I should have just got off of Funchess and played Greg Olsen, who is really cheap as well. That was Jay West's next play. He played 2 tight ends, definitely something that's very contrarian. Always like to do that in tournaments because not a lot of people play 2 tight ends. But that was something that Jay West did. Played Greg Olsen in his flex, who crushed for 29.6 DK points. Had a touchdown catch, 116 yards, 9 catches as well. Got the 100-yard bonus. Just a great game from Greg Olsen. He was heavily targeted by Cam. He got 12 targets in that game, and Cam was really looking to him just all game. Him and McCaffrey really played well yesterday. Definitely took a lot away from Devin Funchess. But not really considering Greg Olsen was definitely stupid on my part. Since I was playing Cam, I should have considered Greg Olsen, especially just 4K. We know how good this guy is. Obviously, he hasn't been healthy this year, at least as of late. But we've seen in past years how good Greg Olsen is, the kind of tight end he is, how he can produce. So him just being 4K in a potential shootout, obviously I should have been considering him, but didn't wind up on him. Greg Olsen, though, was a good play by Jay West and just 6% ownership, 29 DraftKings points. He stacked him and Cam together. Didn't land on the mind of Cam and Devin Funchess, which I wound up landing on. But anyways, looking at his final play, his defense, he went with the Vikings defense. I already talked about them, just thought they were a good play. Only 9% owned, so not a lot of people were on them in Millionaire Maker. But defense is usually a position where ownership spread out anyways. But just an overall good lineup from Jay West 64. Congrats to him on winning the Millionaire Maker by 0.2 points over Abe Monty. He had a really good lineup. But yeah, guys, I think that's pretty much it. For this Week 15 recap and lineup review. If you guys have any questions, feel free to leave them down in the comment section or hit me up on Twitter at the DFS_GOAT. If you want to share some of your plays, some of the guys that you hit on, maybe some of the guys you missed on, feel free to do that down in the comment section. If you haven't already, make sure you drop a like on the video and be sure to subscribe if you are new to the channel. If you're checking out my channel for the first time, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Would really appreciate it. Make sure you check out my Week 16 first looks. We'll be giving my early thoughts, early looks at the Week 16 slate. That video will be going up later today on Monday. Make sure you check that video out as well. But yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching, and we will see you in the next video. Peace, guys.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Yeah, she shaking fast. Yeah, she dropping slow. What? Yeah, neck on fro. Whoa, 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 whoa.